make America great again may ultimately turn out to be make the Antichrist great again.
First week of Donald Trump's return to the Oval Office, and he wasted no time.
Thank you, sir. The next item here is the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty.
They say it's not the end of the world, it's the end of this era. Something new is coming. The greatest triumph of the church in all of world history is coming, when the whole world will become Catholic, the entire world.
The scripture tells us that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than we believe. With the re-election of President Donald J. Trump, we are seeing some drastic changes happening in the world today, politically, socially, administratively, and also prophetically. Friends, we are told in the prophecies of the last days that great changes are soon to take place in our world and that the final movements will be rapid ones. Take a listen to this news clip highlighting some of the drastic and aggressive changes taking place by the administration of President Donald J. Trump in the first week of his presidency.
The first week of Donald Trump's return to the Oval Office, and he wasted no time. The president ordering an end to federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, freezing federal hiring, and firing at least 17 inspectors general who serve as independent watchdogs of federal agencies. Trump also made good on his commitment to free those convicted for their actions during the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, commuting or pardoning some 1,500 rioters, including those who violently assaulted police officers. And on the world stage, taking aim at Russia, warning President Vladimir Putin of possible economic sanctions if he doesn't engage in negotiations with Ukraine, declaring it's time to make a deal. The president also pledging to take back the Panama Canal, threatening tariffs against China, Mexico, Canada, and all of Europe. It is a rapid rollout of Trump's agenda, with no issue more central to his presidency than immigration. President Trump declaring a national emergency at the border, shutting down refugee arrivals, ordering 1,500 armed, active-duty military to the border. And all of this will now be overseen by his new defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, sworn in after Vice President J.D. Vance had to cast the tie-breaking vote for his Senate confirmation late Friday. He takes over a department already deeply involved in delivering on Trump's America First agenda. For the first time in history, military aircraft transporting undocumented immigrants back to their home countries.
These are some very important things. For some, this is a good thing. For others, it is not, depending on their political conviction. But here is what we want to highlight in particular. Bible prophecy tells us before the second coming of Jesus Christ, there are going to be some drastic and aggressive changes. So much so that this will bring about the enforcement of the mark of the beast. Am I saying that Trump is the man who's going to do such a thing? That's not the case at all. What I'm trying to say is that the stage is being set for such a movement.
Well, Lindsay, the dilemma is that if you're weak, which some people would like you to be, if you're really, really pathetically weak, the country's going to be overrun with millions of people. And if you're strong, then you don't have any heart. That's a tough dilemma. Perhaps I'd rather be strong, but that's a tough dilemma.
Recently on our podcast, we hosted the SDA Pearl addressing some of the situation going on in the church. And there she also took the time to highlight the aggressive changes taking place by the Trump administration as well. Take a listen to that.
Well, the Bible tells us that time is going to be shortened. So you've got Habakkuk that says time, the vision will not tarry. Then Matthew, Jesus tells us the days will be shortened. And then in Romans, it tells us that the work will be cut short. And Ellen White has a similar statement talking about, which we're obviously a lot of us are very familiar with, where she says, and the final movements will be rapid ones. And I thought it was very interesting looking at news headlines lately. There's all of these things talking about the rapidity of what Trump is doing. I don't know whether you see, these are all different news headlines that I just looked up this morning, in fact. And, you know, rapid, fast, rapid fire, fast, swift, rapid, moves quickly, and so forth. And I just had a look at one of these articles, and it talks about here how that he has quickly transformed Washington during his first 5 days in office, implementing radical campaign promises and remaking the federal bureaucracy. He has moved swiftly through executive orders, pardons, dismissals, showcasing the extraordinary preparation of his team and their long-planned policy initiatives. There seems to be, I mean, we know, for those of us who've been keeping an eye on the times, it definitely seems like there is some things coming that are prophetically significant. Even this wording, and these are only some of the articles. A couple of these are actually from Australia, but one of them I think is actually out of another, not America. I'm not sure where Rise TV or Rise News comes from, but this whole idea of the second coming and Messiah and all of these sorts of things indicate that language is being used to let us know that things are winding up. And so that question, Jesus is coming, are we ready? Are you and I ready? Ellen White says this, she says, let the restraints now imposed by secular governments be removed and Rome be reinstated in her former power, and there would speedily be a revival of her tyranny and persecution.
A few days later, we also had an interview with Andy Roman from Advent Messenger, where he took the time to highlight the same aggressive changes and policies in the executive order of the Trump administration, showing the connection this could have with the drastic change taking place prophetically as well.
America is a sleeping giant. It was sleeping for the last 4 years. It's not sleeping anymore. You know, that awakening a sleeping giant, that's a metaphor that refers to you provoke and you stir a situation, and then a powerful force that was previously inactive becomes engaged and becomes active. That was a adage, a saying that was made during Pearl Harbor, when Japan, one of the admirals, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I don't want to try to butcher the man's name, but he was an admiral in the Japanese military. 1941, after the Pearl Harbor attack, you know what he said? He said, you know, I'm concerned that maybe all we've done by attacking the U.S. is that we have awakened a sleeping giant. Let me tell you, that's exactly what they did. And the attack against the U.S. during World War II, that attack, what it did is it caused America to go into the war full force. What happened to Japan? What happened to Japan at the end?
Oh, yeah, Hiroshima.
You know what happened to Japan in the end, Pastor James.
Didn't end well.
And listen, we are in an immigration crisis right now. It has awakened a sleeping giant, this nation. Listen, Donald Trump right now, as we're speaking, he's leveraging the full force of the American apparatus, military, economic, the whole force. And he's leveraging the financial sector, the technological aspect, the military pressure. He's using it. Why do you mean military? Well, he's using military planes to deport immigrants. Yeah, they're not using commercial planes. Commercial planes, they don't, nobody feels too concerned about commercial planes, but when you start flying military planes into other countries, yeah, it's intimidation there. And you know what happened with Colombia. Trump sent some planes to Colombia with some Colombian migrants, and he didn't call them like, hey, this is what we're planning on doing. No, he called and says, they're on their way. They're going to be there very soon.
Yeah.
Okay. He didn't ask whether they wanted this to happen or not. And this has been on the news.
Oh, yeah.
The Colombian president pretty much says, no, we're not going to go down that path. We're not taking them.
And comes the tariffs.
What happened? What happened within minutes? I mean, we're not talking about days or weeks. We're not talking about Capitol Hill hearings on, how are we going to respond? They don't want to take their citizens back. Brother, in a matter of minutes, not days.
Yep.
What happened? Trump published to the world on his social media. He didn't send a private, instant message, private message. He published it on social media. He put the world on notice. Okay. And the consequence was not just 25% tariff on everything. That was just for the first week.
Yep.
But the next week, it was going to increase to 50% tariffs on all their imports. Then he said, I'm revoking all your visas. I'm not going to allow you to use our banking systems. We're going to go to war. You're going to have an economic trade war with the United States. What happened less than an hour later? Pastor James, tell us what happened.
Oh, yeah. He said, bring them. We will
Bring 'em
receive
all.
them. We will receive them with gladness. Bring them home.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
Absolutely.
There's
And,
something about
I'm
that.
pretty sure all his advisors told him, are you crazy? You're going to go to a trade? You want a trade war with the United States? So yes, they caved. They caved.
Very quickly.
Nobody wants to go to war against the United States. And listen, what this has done, what this immigration crisis is allowing, what it's doing, what the circumstances is forcing upon the world, is that now the world is sitting up and paying attention. And the message is this, Pastor James, the message coming from our administration is this to the world: cooperate or suffer the consequences. And what we saw in this Columbia episode was remarkable because it happened with blinding force.
Yeah.
The whole world is watching. I guess the world is so focused on everything else, football games. I mean, I think it was between one or two of the conference finals, whatever they call it. It was between one of those two games that all of this was happening. The whole world was asleep, distracted. Brothers, prophecy is being fulfilled.
Yes.
United States has to be in the position. Let me rephrase this. The immigration crisis, don't let a good crisis go to waste. They're not going to allow this one to go to waste. They're going to take full advantage of this to radically change the landscape of the world. The immigration crisis has created an opportunity for the U.S. to push its economic clout on the rest of the world. They're making threats. They're making threats. And that's what prophecy shows us. That's what Revelation 13 shows us. So yes, my brothers and sisters, things are happening. And we as God's people, we had better rise up to the occasion. We need to live out the meaning of why he has us for this here on this earth for the end time. We need to give this warning message, my brothers and sisters, because we're not going to have a lot of time if we allow these events to pass by without a response.
We are told in the spirit of prophecy that time is almost finished. What you do, you must do quickly. In early writing, page 64, paragraph 1, Ellen White says, time is almost finished. Do you reflect the lovely image of Jesus as you should? Get ready, get ready, get ready. You will have to die a greater death to the world than you have yet ever died. I saw that there was a great work to do for them, but a little time in which to do it.
We have an executive order prepared for your attention that would withdraw the United States from the UN Human Rights Council.
So I've always felt that the UN has tremendous potential. It's not living up to that potential right now. It really isn't, hasn't for a long time. They got to get their act together.
Withdrawing from
What
the
is this?
withdrawing from the World Health Organization, sir.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Wherefore he saith, awake that thou sleepest, arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. See that you walk circumspectly, not as fool but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days of evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is.
If anyone has some, I'm pretty sure you guys are very familiar with the makeup of your Supreme Court, but it is pretty much Catholic. Even this guy that's the Catholic Anglican, he is Catholic. His wife is Anglican, so he goes to church with his Anglican or Episcopalian wife. The only one who is supposedly Protestant, there seems to be no record of her even attending church. Now, this is the statement that I have underneath is actually from the Vatican, and it tells laymen of the Catholic Church what they should be doing. It says laymen should also know that it is generally the function of their well-formed Christian conscience to see that the divine law is inscribed in the life of the earthly cities. Now, we know what they believe is the divine law. It's the law that's promulgated by the Catholic authorities. From priests, they may look for spiritual light and nourishment. It's obviously not to Christ, but what a priest told to do. Since humanity today increasingly moved towards civil, economic, and social unity, it is more than ever necessary that priests, with joint concern and energy under the guidance of the bishops and the Supreme Pontiff, erase every cause of division so that the whole human race may be led to the unity of God's family. So these lay people, if they're receiving their directions from priests, which they are told to do, then they're going to make sure that the Catholic divine law is inscribed in the life of the earthly cities. And you see, as Trump was doing his campaign journey, sorry, I just accidentally went off my screen. He was going around saying he loves the Catholics quite a lot. And as you can see, he says he's going to stand up for the Catholic Church and everything that it stands for because he loves it. And so this makes it, it's very clear that we're heading towards a great crisis. Now,
I want to close this segment of this video with a final remark coming from Dr. Conrad Vine. Take a listen.
Families are to be destroyed by welfare programs, criminal justice, mass incarceration, and public school indoctrination, and thus the state becomes the supreme authority in the education and rearing of the next generation, not the parents. This is what's happened in the Protestant state that's gone crazy in America today. The Catholic version of subsidiarity promotes stronger families as the core unit of society, and federalism, the Protestant light version of subsidiarity, does not promote liberty or morality at all, but instead has given us the welfare state, moral decay, and the collapse of the nuclear family. So this is how Catholics are viewing what's happened in America. And they're essentially arguing that America is hardwired as Catholic, that the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are coming from Catholic natural law, not from Protestant thinking, and that if America is to become great again, like Make America Great Again, MAGA, it needs to return not to its Protestant roots, but it needs to return to a Catholic version that never was there in the first place. And as Adventists, we say that America is going to have a partnership with the Catholic Church. The second beast of Revelation will be a partner with the first beast of Revelation 13. We've preached that for 150 plus years, and the Catholics are now saying the same thing, that America has to return to become a Catholic nation in order to restore it to its original envisioned greatness from the founders and the framers. So what do we say in conclusion here today? The prophetic role of America in Earth's last days is clearly laid out in Scripture and in the spirit of prophecy. We understand that America in the end times will form an alliance with the papacy, and it will form a persecuting union of church and state to form its own union of church and state between the papacy and America. The beast and the image to the beast will enforce false worship. That is Sunday worship globally, using economic mandates, no buy, no sell pressure, and eventually the death penalty of all who will not receive the mark of the beast. That is the message of Revelation 13. We touched on it this morning. We're touching on it again this afternoon. And in response, the three angels' messages of Revelation 14 call upon all humanity to reject this coerced false worship and to worship the true Creator in truth and in obedience, which means keeping the Sabbath day holy as per the fourth commandment. America today, after the last election, is going through a profound cultural change. The moment President Trump was elected, it's like I'm telling you, the censorship stopped almost overnight on social media. It's just like there's a new breath of freedom come to the nation. And you can now say things without fear of being cancelled, whereas in October, you say the self-same things, you'd be cancelled by polite society. People are realizing the pendulum is starting to swing from a hard version of secularism where anything goes, and people are disgusted by that because of the extremes it brings. Now the pendulum is starting to swing back. And where is that pendulum going to swing? Is it going to swing to a Protestant version of America? Probably not. It's going to go back to where America is hardwired to be in the Catholic view, which is as a Catholic republic. The recent elections represent a rejection of the woke ideologies dominating the hard left. There is now a swing to a more nationalist and a pseudo-Christian outlook. More and more public figures in America in the social media sphere are openly embracing the Catholic faith. And President Trump's own spiritual renewal may also lead him to Rome. It's interesting that the first trip he made after he was re-elected as president was the opening of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. There was significance in that. He went to Notre Dame for the opening of that cathedral after it burnt down 3 years ago. Make America Great Again may ultimately turn out to be make the Antichrist great again. We don't know just yet. Only God knows that. So the Catholic view of America is that she is wired Catholic, labeled Protestant, and operating in a secular manner. And the current cultural swing in America may lead her not back to Scripture, but may lead her to Rome, and ultimately to her end-time role as the persecutor of God's people.